And the river still shines and shimmers in the light as it did in our grandfather's day, when they rode all night to fish in the morning and lived in Willapa Bay.
All right. We're already running 5 minutes late here, so everybody's coming in for the Fisher Poets 7 o'clock hour. Come on down front. Let's quiet down so we can hear the performers. My name's Dan O'Quinn. I was supposed to be here at 5 o'clock as one of your MCs. We had a family emergency, but everything's okay, and I finally made it. Here I am. And we are glad you're here tonight. We're still looking for Dennis McGuire. Dennis, if you're in port here, come on up and let us know you're in the house. Yeah. Our first performer in the 7 o'clock hour is Brad Warren, and I'm thinking Brad should have been a doctor instead of a fisherman, because I'm looking at his sheet here and I don't know what it says, but I know Brad pretty well, so I kind of know. He fished troll caught all around Southeast on the FV Anna. He was an editor at National Fisherman, so you know the guy knows how to write. He ran Pacific Fishing, and I know Brad best through Global Ocean Health, which is a great nonprofit organization dedicated to saving our world's ocean. Mostly I know through acidification, is that right?
And the other consequences of carbon. Acidification and the other consequences of carbon pollution for the ocean. Yeah.
So I don't know what Brad's got for us tonight, but I know he's a fantastic musician. I know you're going to love him. So put your hands together for Brad Warren.
Thank you, Dano. Thank you all. It's great to be here. It's like coming back to a family reunion. I love Astoria, and I love the chance to be here among you. In Friday Harbor, when I was a kid, my first reporting job was in a fishing town. And fishermen were starting to notice that some strange things were happening, and they were glad to have somebody, a kid, they could basically say, find out why we're going out of business. What's going on? And so that's what got me started. I think I was 18. And the newspaper couldn't pay very well. Sometimes they couldn't pay at all. So I had a second job that I lucked into, playing music in the fisherman's bar in town. It was called the Mariner. And some of the things that are in this song kind of got their start there. The fishermen were not really the creepy part, but there's every town, every waterfront has an underbelly, and it's pretty interesting sometimes. If you hang around in music for a while, if you work in it seriously, you find a lot of underbelly that you wish you didn't know about. And this all kind of went into this. Can you hear? It's another cold, rainy day, if you could call it day. Just a pallid imitation of a dim bulb in the sky, so the wharf rats can watch the boats wallowing low, and the tired crews can stagger to the 5 o'clock shadow. To the 5 o'clock shadow. Crack a beer, let out a sigh. Tell me about the one that got away. Those emerald eyes, so they say. But why the docks are full of lies. That's what keeps me in business. Hit the 5 o'clock shadow. At the 5 o'clock shadow. Don't call me to tell your lost fisherman. Maybe he's got his reasons. Man, the whole harbor knows his warehouse is a grow. Girl, you thought that boat was for fish? If you catch my drift, I'll buy you around at the 5 o'clock shadow. At the 5 o'clock shadow. They say the kingpin in this town used to swan around with his whole St. crew in tow. He was young and proud till he sat down for a round with a guy who plays for keeps. Oh, the secrets you could know at the 5 o'clock shadow. Now some folks say he's on the lam. The truth is, well, I ain't saying. If you're asking me who's paying, you sure you wanna know. Let's take a look around and try to guess which one's a federal. He's looking high and low for the 5 o'clock shadow. For the 5 o'clock shadow. For the 5 o'clock shadow. It's kind of the first chapter in a noir that is going to wind up coming out. I think Stonehill and I are starting work on something that we'll be back with more. I'm not sure what shape it's going to take. This is one that's a co-write with Jeff Kars, who's the reason that some of it's funny. Jeff is a fisherman and poet and translator from Turkish, and an amazing mind and good company. He's here with us at this event this weekend. He's probably at another venue. I think I'd see him by now. But I co-wrote this with him. It's called The Great Fisher Poets Brawl, and I'll let you be the judge of whether any of it's true. There are no reliable witnesses. No hearing has ever been held because of that fact, and the magistrates have refused to opine. Let's see. Well, Free really drained his stout, took the mic, and stared at the crowd. Y'all call yourselves Fisher Poets. I'll be picking you clowns from my teeth. You gonna read or just duck behind your beer like some snapper in a reef? You all got some poetry, or you just a bunch of squids sitting around hiding behind your beard? That's enough, squirt. Mind your place in the food chain, growled Big Pat. You can't eat Fisher Poets. They're the reason we all came. Well, Clem Stark raised a hand in the air, and the room fell into a watchful hush. Clem took the stage like a rattler takes his lair. Might be just a trick of light, but some folks claim they saw lightning in his hair. The old builder of poems planted himself in front of Free Willy. The crafty smile no one could read. One part kindness, one part switchblade. Then he spun to face the crowd. Fisher poets, now's your time. Don't be a tease. No pushing, no shoving, no biting, no spitting, please. Come on now, get up and read. Mobile Stern was first to rise. She looked Willie up and down. What makes you so free? You flying low? Or is that just the breeze fluttering your britches? Looks like you might get chilly. If you ain't dropped a load yet, you will, Mr. Willie. Well, that's when the melee busted out. And through the smashed up chairs and the fists and shouts, a flying lasso sailed the room. And it yanked Mobile Stern clear off the stage. And then a tall cowboy, more mustache than face, leapt up to the mic, and man, he looked enraged. I can't let a woman show me up. I'm the best there ever was. Nah, you're just a harpoon. Big Pat hurled him clear through the saloon. And even now, the great Fisher poets say they can still see his boots sticking out through the glass. If you get lost, just look for the long line of Astoria cowgirls just waiting to kick his ass. Well, Free Willy took in the sea of shouts and fists, and he just could not resist. Y'all got some fine words, but that don't hang a broom in the rigging. That's when a bull sea lion barreled in, pinned Willie to the floor. You smell good. You my favorite little herring. I like 'em raw. If that big tusk bull was in the mood, the flash of black and white broke the spell. Big as a rail car, the killer whale came for food. Gnashing teeth like a row of spear points. You got sea lions in this joint, let me at 'em, that's my only wish. Why let a tasty pinniped steal your fish? They're the ones I came for. Well, the Stellar slunk out the back, and a guy named Broderick finally stood. He stepped up to the pearly rack and he said, I just got a few words, so listen good. Now I need you to watch the door. You can have the sea lions, just don't eat the Fisher poets. They're the reason we're all here. Don't eat the Fisher poets. They're the reason we're all here. How are we doing on time? Got time for one more? All right. My name is Jack Miller. Miller. I'm an old Union man, and you're standing right now in the house that Jack built. My pride is the work that I've done with my hands. It's a laboring man that has made this land great. I am an old man of 92. When you are my age, you'll realize it's true. You're young and you're limber, your bones are like timber. Come the cold winter, you'll change in your ways. I've seen you grow up in what seems a few days, and you know more than I knew when I was your age. I went to the sawmill when I was just 12, and I learned how to run all the saws and the lathes. When the wobblies came around, I was first to sign on. We told the old boss that we wanted a raise. Well, they called out his thugs and they rounded us up. We ran through their gauntlet and many were slain. I worked all my life in the field and the sawmill, built bridges and houses and roads and canals. Let me tell you one thing, how I earned a good wage. There ain't no arms like folded arms for the working man's pay. There ain't no arms like folded arms for the working man's pay. My name is Jack Miller. I'm an old Union man, and you're standing right now in the world that Jack built. Thank you. Thanks, Abigail.
Yes. Thank you, Brad. Let's give him another round of applause for his great singing. And next, our next 15 minutes up is John Oakes, and he's from Long Beach, Washington. And he fished for 25 years from Southeast Alaska, Washington, and California. Let's give a round of applause for John.
No, it's Washington. They had it wrong in the program. I'm from right over there. I was born right over there. My first trip on a boat was with that guy, who's my dad. I think I was 7, and he promised me a 2% share. And we went out, and he had the best trip of his life. And he didn't want to pay me. I think I had that like $1,200 in my bank account, probably until I was 15 and started blowing money. I was sold. Thank you, honey. I don't so much write about the ocean as I feel the ocean in my blood. Growing up in this area, I feel like she did a large part of the rearing of me. This first poem is called A Plea from the Future. And I've read it a lot of different ways. It was maybe the first poem where I felt a voice that I didn't recognize coming through the pen. And so I've got to play with who that voice was. But the poem got a name after it had lived for about 2 years when I finally found the true voice, and that's that 6-year-old little girl over there. So when I read this poem, I feel her talking to me, giving me directions, and all the future ancestors sort of standing behind her. So she's been able to orient me into how to live. It's called A Plea from the Future. Do you know me just enough to put me in a box? Do you tie me up and shove me in and try to make it lock? If it won't close, what will you do? Cut a piece so I can fit? Ask me to change the way I sit? I know you love the bits of me that fit your stories well. You think of me as part of you, something you can tell. Stay put. Stop moving. You discipline the rough edges and groom the soft pieces to keep me nice and clean. Because what you don't know, if you let me out, I will unleash the most powerful love that you have ever seen. And with it will come pain and knowing. I am your bear. I am a unicorn. I am a fucking angel of death waiting to be born and set loose upon your life to topple all the towers in my path. So when we get to the end together, we can laugh and say, nothing ever lasts. Unpack me from that box and fluff my feathers. Watch me fly and pray to gods that I bring all the weather, so you can truly know the calm after the storm. Pray to have something to mourn, something to feel, something real. Pray to break so you can heal. And we will dance across the universe, hunting our next meal. And I think that's actually the only poem you get tonight, because now I'm fresh out. I've been reading them for a couple days. No, this next, what I'm going to read you next, I've been working on for a few months. It's not quite a story. It's not quite a poem. Probably best described as a myth, but a true myth about a dragon. Maybe better, a myth about a dragon that I true my own life to. And I invite you to do the same, at least for the next few minutes. What if all of us must eventually be the ones we have been looking for? The one with the dream that holds all others in its embrace. This is a shared story about the path of each human reestablishing our lives in service to a very big but intimate family of life. It is about openness, reconciliation, forgiveness, maturation, creativity, and eldership. Of remembering how to operate in virtuous relationship, putting our gifts, talents, and individual desires to good use in service of life and the lives we know are truly ours to live. In this story, we find ourselves in the wild adventure of embodiment as human. And just like the most thoroughgoing tale of all of us, there are no endings, just a series of infinite beginnings. This is a story about the world that you would like to see and a way to get there. It is a dream that began long ago in the privacy of your own heart. This story is about the only empire worth building. Its name is Dreaming in Unison. This is a story about a flood, and while it is certainly akin to the flood stories buried deep within our bones, its differences are many. In this story, the flood is a prologue, a mysterious entry point into an unknown world. A flood as the guarantor of change, so that at the beginning of our story, there is simply a choice to make among us whether we would like to have agency in the change as it rises. This flood has dawned for those of us claiming that agency. Dreaming in unison is a ship that will be carried by and will carry us into uncharted waters. The ship doesn't need to know where it's going, for it knows that it is going everywhere eventually. It simply needs its many parts to come together cohesively so as to explore the cartography for a new world that revives our planet and our psyches. It's a vessel that will map the projects, machines, and imaginings that already exist for our better world that we all know in our hearts is possible. It is a ship to create an atlas that will be used by future generations. So now, having been beckoned into the more irradiated world of myth, a world where time is kept in moments, not minutes, a world that is more real than the real and more absolute than the factual, the life of fire, water, earth, and air, I ask you to rest your mind in this tale and to allow yourself for a moment to become an answered prayer. I invite you to board this ship with me. Once upon a time, there was one possibility among many, but one that took hold upon many. It was this: as the sentience known as Earth circled her loving sun while they explored a galaxy called the Milky Way, the creatures known as human had learned all they could from their institutions of control. Through 100,000-year age, they had visited all the dark corners of their own mind and were readying themselves for the wild journey of complete immersion into the next iteration of human dynamics. Thus, I have heard, here there was genuine freedom. Here there was the presence of love, the presence of genius, and the many presence of presence cultivated by a new and truer way of being human. This dream of freedom began in many hearts, and in short order resulted in disparate groups of networks established one at a time. Communities of individuals self-organizing new paradigms of living, working, loving, and governing inconspicuously, but most importantly, harmoniously, rose to an empowered political positionality amidst the falling away of nation-states and old-world antics that no longer could support the evolution called forth by the intelligence of these Earth-conscious collectives. It was ultimately loving, patient, methodical, and yet it happened much faster than its progenitors expected. This is so because they were brought together to perceive themselves not as separate endeavors, but as a metaphysical movement, as a relationship brought together to dream in unison. The bow of the ship was an exalted lifestyle choice vested in the sacredness of life, immersed in a praxis of presencing the best in ourselves and one another. It is a practice that was essential for evolution, continuously cultivated to combat warfare of all kinds, continuously elaborated to cull true welfare in all minds. The rudder of the ship adjusted its course moment to moment, bridging a world in transition, opening doors to more natural and evolutionary ways of being, making love where love had yet to be made. Recognizing their dreaming in unison, these sundry networks of people, now self-organized into network states, progressively evolved themselves toward a borderless nation based on meritocracy. This meritocracy was made possible by the decentralization of blockchain and AI technology, beset with the parameters of growing ontological literacy among these communities. This was a choice to be with life as it expands rather than manipulate it for control. Life felt loved by its inhabitants, and as a natural consequence, began to love back more. Finally, life awakening to life, rather than remaining unconscious consumers of it. A story of making love, a call to what it means to live in and as the community of life, as a response to what has not worked about conformity. As each network state established itself, being birthed by the willingness to truly learn how to take care of itself, ourselves, the self, each of these networks was then conceived of as a scale of a dragon being established on a new map of a new world. What was nations predicated on sameness and separation became communities aligned in service. Ensconced in these revelatory scales, humanity had birthed an awake, aware, and very spirited dragon named Earth.
All right, let's hear it for John Oakes. That was fantastic, John. John came all the way from Long Beach, California to join us tonight. Happy he made the trip. Folks, if you have been inspired by things that you've heard over the weekend, you too can be a Fisher Poet. Every year, if you've been here before, you know that they have a contest Saturday night, 10 o'clock, and anybody who has a button can enter the contest. There's always a theme. So this year, your poem needs to be no longer than 30 seconds long. It has to include the words full moon. The first and last lines need to be the same but different. I think that's up to the poet to figure out what that means, okay? And it must include 3 boaty type prepositions or locator words. Examples, abeam, astern, abroad, abaft, aloft, etc. Starboard port. So at 10 o'clock, if you start writing right now, you could be the winner. This is going to be at the Liberty Theater. It's always a hoot. Even if you haven't written something, you should go because you'll hear some wild stories over there. Starts at 10 o'clock when everything finishes off here. All right? Everybody got the parameters? I haven't put you to sleep? Good. Well, our next presenter, I'm so happy that I'm here to MC for Lorrie Haight. Lorrie's from Long Beach, Washington, not California. And Lorrie has been coming to every FisherPoets Gathering since it began in 1998. She is the lifelong partner of Smitty Smith, who was the preeminent Fisher poet. We lost Smitty in 2012, but we all remember him fondly. His stories were legend. His poetry was legend, and we all loved him. We all love Lorrie, and we're glad she's here tonight. She's going to come up and share some words with us. Welcome, Lorrie Haight.
Up to about here. Oh, yeah, that's good. Thank you. Very good. Good evening. Okay, we're going to get back to poetry now. And Smitty was the great poet. He was a poet from age 4. And I was, for many, many years, I was known as Smitty's wife. But over the years, I've been inspired to write a little bit of my own. Tonight, I am going to read Smitty's work because he was the best. Robert Service was his idol, and his poetry usually follows a story. It tells a story in poetic form. And this poem I'm going to read to you now is kind of a love story. It's called The Ballad of Rubber Hooks Divine. According to a fisherman whose name was Divine,
The world's a cafeteria. You get one trip through the line. With this fact then planted firmly in his mind, he set his sights on having the best that he could find. He was always dreaming of a life of luxury, but the way that things were going, 'twas likely not to be, because in order to accomplish these somewhat lofty goals, he sorely needed every fish that bent his trolling poles. So long and loud he would complain when a fish slipped off his line. Consequently, he was known as Rubber Hooks Divine. By unjust fate or foul luck, lost fish, his dreams were thwarted, resulting in domestic when he'd rather have imported. Resigned to screw-top bottles, no cork-stoppered stuff. Be damned those fish that got away, making his life tough. He had a box of crackers, but no beluga caviar, and a beat-up old Chevy, but no fancy German car. Quality of life in intricate design, those were serious matters for Rubber Hooks Divine. He had a lot of friends among the other trollers, but of course included were no megabucks high rollers. So when a cruise ship bound for Sitka happened by to pass, he seized this opportunity to view the upper class. Rubber Hooks maneuvered as close as he dared to sail. A real nice-looking lady was waving from the rail. A diamond necklace round her throat had slipped its fragile clasp. Tragically, it fell away despite her frantic grasp. Diamonds sparkled in the sun as they plunged into the brine, and by chance became entangled on his portside bowline. Now, Rubber Hooks was trolling a diamond-studded lure that no salmon could resist, and that was for sure because there was an instant stretching of a spring. The diamond lure was inhaled by a 35-pound king. Rubber Hooks crossed his fingers and put the gurdy in gear that this fish might depart was his greatest fear. Oh yes, he got the fish with those diamonds on the hook. He clutched on to the necklace and off for Sitka town he took. Well, on the way, he was overcome by the strangest feeling. If he kept and sold this necklace, in fact, he would be stealing. So he approached the cruise ship office and he left this note. I found a diamond necklace and I've got it on my boat. I want to return it because it isn't mine. I'm tied up to the fishing float. Signed, Rubber Hooks Divine. While he was cooking summer from the cabin door and knocking, Rubber Hooks looked out and what he saw was shocking. Same good-looking lady that was on the cruise ship deck. She sure looked good to Rubber Hooks despite no diamonds around her neck. Come in, I've got your necklace and a seat please take. I'm just fixing supper here, have some salmon steak. So they became acquainted as they began to dine on salmon steak and fried potatoes, washed down with screw-top bottle wine. The lady was impressed and she began to feel that she'd never met a better man nor had a better meal. She said, I'm really jealous of the life you lead, so what I'm really hoping is a partner you might need. A deal was promptly made that fulfilled both their wishes. Rubber Hooks whistled, tying gear, and she sang while washing dishes. So from then on, they fished together, and although his nickname stuck, nevermore was Rubber Hooks heard to curse his luck. Yeah, good old Rubber Hooks. Well, when Smitty and I started fishing together in 1980, I wanted to have a cat on the boat, and Smitty wasn't really into cats. Anyway, he wrote this poem for me to read to you, and it's about our cat, Bridge Cat. And I have to tell you that the term alienophobe is someone who hates cats, and alienophile is somebody that loves them. So this is the Ballad of Bridge Cat, and this is a true story, believe it or not. This is a true story. One day I said, I want a cat. I think they're lots of fun. Smitty countered, stating, you are the only one. A difference of opinion hardly termed a spat whether or not 'twas practical for us to have a cat. 'Cause we lived on a fishing boat. It was our only home. There were no trees for a cat to climb, nor alleys it could roam. Although he argued long and loud, he gave in after a while, a triumph o'er the aliophobe by the aliophile. With haste I searched the classifieds, then we're Alaska bound, with a tiny kitten aboard, heading for the Fairweather grounds. Its life was now confined to sea, far from any land, living on the flying bridge with a box of sand. Shanghaied from her litter mates for life on the bounding main, clawed up and down the hawser rope, Bridge Cat was her name. Adapting to a life at sea, there was no other choice, and she confirmed her happiness with loudly purring voice. Whether it be decks awash or rain pelting from the sky, Bridge Cat seemed not to mind, and she was seldom dry. Whenever it did happen that near the docks we'd close, Bridge Cat occupied the bow stem on the anchor she did pose. She couldn't seem to wait until we were tied up safe 6 feet away from the dock, and she'd leap into space. She prowled the docks and other boats, but always came to rest on sea miners' flying bridge in her cozy nest. She took advantage, like all cats, when it came to eating, especially the salmon hearts while they were still beating. The very end of the boom was her favorite perch. No problem for an agile cat, the boat's rocking lurch. From here she saw the cleaning trough with anticipated stare. I'd toss up a needlefish and she'd snatch it in midair. That's the way the season went, no bird or mouse or rat. Bounty of the ocean was crunched up by Bridge Cat. We'd dump a shrimp pot in a pail, it's there she'd catch 'em. Arm deep in the water, she'd reach to grab them off the bottom. Season ended, heading south. What would she eat now? The tasty seafood tidbits replaced by dry cat chow. Then, sometime that winter inside the Ballard locks, Bridge Cat found a boyfriend on the fisherman's terminal docks. So our boat cat population was increased by 6. Smitty wisely mentioned not a gunny sack and bricks. Next season fast approached. New homes must be found. Discovering with luck 5 more aliophiles around. One kit still begged for a home. For this we also prayed. And before we headed north, we had Bridge Cat spayed. While we were in the locks, descending to the sound, talking to a nearby boat, the last kit's home was found. The locksman was a jewel, and whilst the kitten purred, he lowered down a bucket and to the other boat transferred. Oh, we were so happy, at last our problem solved. But not so for poor Bridge Cat, her happiness dissolved. All the way up north, we could tell that on her mind was a desperate hope that her kittens she would find. We made a stop in Ketchikan to pick up some supplies. Bridge Cat roamed around the floats with searching eyes. Next morning, it was time to go, but my Bridge Cat was gone. After days of fruitless search and call, we reluctantly went on. Fishing on the outside banks, some friends gave us a shout. We saw your cat in Pelican. It was her without a doubt. At first, we didn't think it was. We scarce believed our eyes, but not our dog, Vanilla. Her friend, she recognized. This news gave me fresh hope. I was excited and elated. I'd have to wait till the next closure. In 3 weeks, it was dated. It seemed to take forever, the arrival of that date, when the sea miner made attack for Lizinsky Strait. I searched the town of Pelican, asking everyone I knew. No trace was found of Bridge Cat, so what was I to do? Smitty wanted to take off and wished that I were faster. He whiled away the time with his pal, the harbor master. We came to town to find our cat. My wife looked every place. Well, I might have your cat, he said. Did it have an orange face? A skeptic always, he said yes, but one clue didn't show, that it was Bridge, so Smitty said, much more I'll have to know. Did Dr. Rocher spay your cat in Seattle at his clinic? Smitty's eyes lit up in shock. He didn't have to mimic. This really threw him for a loop. How'd you know this from afar? Well, I used to work for Dr. D. I recognize the scar. True. Just then I came back down the dock, so sad without my pet. Smitty said, there may be hope. Now don't be so upset. We went back into town just as fast as we were able and found Bridge Cat fast asleep on the harbor master's table. He then told us the story of some ailer-phobic lout who found her stowed away on board and promptly tossed her out. 'Twas fate. The Kansas came along. The skipper came beside and saved her from Wrangell Narrows, where she swam against the tide. The Kansas docked in Pelican, singing glory from above, a dyed-in-the-wool ailer-file. With this cat he fell in love. Alas, her missing kittens, poor Bridge Cat still was seeking. On other boats she searched, went a snooping and a peeking. While thus engaged, the boat cast off. Away with her they drove. Upon discovery, she was dropped off in Elfin Cove. Her search there continued, and what happened then? Another boat gave her a ride back to Pelican again. This time the harbor master took his in this calico friend, and so our trip to town came to a happy end. For several years, she fished with us without strife or harm. She lived to be 20 years old on a riverside Stanwood farm. True story. Okay, this last one I'm going to read to you. This is something I wrote, and I just call it Alaska. It kind of covers my whole Alaska experience and my experience with Smitty, and so I'm just going to read it. I originally wrote it as a song to with a ukulele, but I discovered I have absolutely no musical talent, and so I'm just going to read it. Alaska. When I went up to Alaska to catch some fish, I signed on with an old sourdough to fulfill my wish. I had so much fun, I didn't want to come back. A younger fisherman captured my heart, and we took another tack. A remote cabin in Alaska is where we then called home. I loved it so much I couldn't leave. No more would I roam. But while all alone, a fire crept in and took everything I owned. A week later, my lover came back and saved my weary bones. I told my man, I love you. But his drinking buddies took too much of his time. So I cheated death in Alaska, but my love life died. I then moved into Juneautown and took a desk job to survive. To go fishing in the spring, I quit that job and wound up buying the boat. Living on board, another job with the state. I was so happy I did gloat. By the next spring in Alaska, I had a cushy job and a cat, week on, week off. Now I ask you, what could be better than that? 12 hours a day for 7 straight days, week on, week off was great. Catching kings and coho salmon, each night I had fish on my plate. Seems like every week on my engine I did work. Greasy coveralls was not enough to attract another man. Winters up in Alaska, so dark and so cold. To become a snowbird, my job I quit and my boat I sold. I went to Mexico for one winter and Hawaii the next fall. This lifestyle was working for me. I was having a ball. One spring I returned to Alaska to crew on another's boat. The Sea Miner sure looked good to me. Captain Smitty was no old goat. But a Hawaiian beau rode inviting me to sail away down to the South Seas. I said, Smitty, take me to the beach. I'm sailing away. I'll take my pay now, please. The sailing was perfect, but bad relations on the boat. I got off in Tahiti and wandered around all alone. When I got back to Seattle, Smitty was waiting for me. I was ready to stay with him. We were happy as can be. We fished the southeast coast and on the Fairweather grounds. We made a real good team. My soulmate I had finally found. After 2 years fishing Alaska, Smitty showed me his sailboat plans. 3 winters' work with the help of a friend. The boat turned out to be grand. We fished the Akavavit in '85, then set our sails to go cruise down to Mexico and warmer seas. We just couldn't lose. Mexico, Costa Rica, and the Galapagos, French Polynesia, all the way down to New Zealand. For 8 years, we bobbed around swimming in the South Seas, around tropical islands with friendly natives. We lived a life of ease. But being hot all the time and eating coconuts and fish, the islands started looking the same. We decided to sail back and head due north. We were looking for a new game. So we got Harley Davidsons and sold that boat, riding all around the States. With a cat in the yard and garden out back, good produce on our plates. We moved to Long Beach. Smitty had his shop. I was making books to sell. Life on land was good for us, not much more to tell. Then came a kid in a pickup truck, and into Smitty he crashed. In a split second, he changed our lives. Nothing would ever be the same. So I became a caregiver, helping Smitty to heal. For 7 long years, we struggled along. This was such a raw deal. When he got real bad, I couldn't help anymore. I had to put him in a home. The best man I ever did love died and left me all alone. Now, I'd like to go back to Alaska and relive the good old days. But I'm getting old, so I ask you, is it too late to change my ways? At least I can still come to the Fisher Poets to be part of it each year. I love to see all my Fisher friends, all their good poems and stories to hear. Thank you. Thank you, Abigail.
Thank you, Lorrie. Well, you're giving her a hand, aren't you? Thank you very much. And I'll tell you what, the next time I get a cat, I'm going to name it Bridge Cat. I love that story. All right, we have a break, 10-minute break. See you back at 8 o'clock. Okay.
Bait sculping was a livelihood for most of us here. Mackerel clouds overhead are moving on. We call it a sailor sky, and the wind lightens, flattening the water, bringing a following tide.
Hey, thanks for taking a minute to talk to us about the FisherPoets Gathering. Can you tell me your name?
Jason.
Jason, why are you here this weekend?
This must be like our 15th one. We've been coming since 2008 from Portland to Astoria to see the poetry.
That is fantastic. So that means you're really enjoying it. You're getting a lot out of it. What would you tell people if they were asking you what it's all about and what they should see?
Absolutely. I'm always recruiting folks to come down because it's very casual. Doesn't cost a lot of money. You get to see all the poets you like, get to see even more, and it's all walkable. There's plenty of food and plenty of room and lots of voices and 20 minutes, and then you're on to a new artist. So it's been a treat every time. We'll never miss it.
Well, I know we only had the Friday night performances. We haven't had the Saturday night performances yet, but so far, what's been your favorite?
I was seeing a number of great familiar faces, and then I finally ventured out a bit and saying instead of my favorites, I'd see some I didn't know. So last night over at Fort George, I saw Mariah Waterman and thought it was just a home run, each poem of hers. So I hope to maybe track her down or follow through with my plan to see new artists tonight.
Any tips?
If you just move around a lot and you just open your mind up to something new, you'll always be surprised.
Jason, thank you so much for talking with us today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.